Hi, everybody. This is Zen Honeycutt of Moms Across America, and I'm here with Matt Powers. He's an educator, permaculture educator, and author of some great books. And we're going to do a three-part series. I'm so excited. Today, we're going to talk about permaculture and the home and a lifestyle of permaculture,
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm very excited to have you here. Will you please clear up for us, what is permaculture? A lot of us think it's just like a particular way to plant food. Is that it, or is it bigger than that?
It became bigger. It originally started as that. It started as perennial agriculture or permanent agriculture, and so permaculture.
Okay.
And it started off with this book, Tree Crops, Permanent Agriculture, written like 100 years ago.
And by permanent, that meant trees are perennials. They're going to stay there. You don't have to clear them, obviously, and plant them again.
No tilling, right?
Okay.
And so it started as that, and then they began to realize they could create a design system that could be applied to the home, the garden, the farm, and then people started thinking about the city, and then people have started thinking about how we could apply this to everything, our governments, our businesses. And so you have incredible things like Wayaki, where you buy yerba mate tea from them, and that purchase comes in a bag that's a carbon negative because of the way it was designed, and it all decomposes in your compost, and then the tea, the money you spend on it actually funds the restoration of the rainforest, and funds the people who are maintaining the rainforest.
Wow.
So it's a holly vine that only thrives in the rainforest. So stuff like that, like people took this idea of working with nature and solving problems and seeing the world really through the eyes of nature, and solving problems with the patterns and the cycles of nature. And that's it. The thing is, permaculture really is what all Native American cultures were doing, what most indigenous cultures were doing that had long-lasting culture, not the short-lived cultures that died off,
right.
but the ones that partnered with nature.
Okay. Partnered with nature.
They lived long.
So you're not producing toxins that pollute nature. You're not taking and clearing nature and destroying
we are nature.
Right. We're working with nature, utilizing it in a way that works for us, and we're not polluting it and destroying it. So that really does sound more like a way of living once you really get into it. Right?
It becomes a lens, and it kind of lifts off but you start with the garden because it's a controlled space. It's something that all of our ancestors have worked and played in, and we can easily see these lessons play out with the greater scheme of nature and all of our systems in the garden.
So how does that start in the home? If we're going to have a permaculture garden in our backyard, just let us, we've got small yards back, a lot of us. What does that look like? What's it going to,
what are we
going to grow?
There's so many different ways that could manifest. It's basically a system that would provide food for you, that would be the most resilient, self-reliant system. So maybe your roof water comes off and has a first flush diverter so that it cleans it, because our roofs are dirty, and the first rain that comes on it washes that rain down the gutter and it's dirty. So we divert that and flush it off, and then that rest of that water can go into our gardens.
Okay.
Maybe we have to filter it first through a reed bed and then into our gardens, or maybe we just put it onto fruit trees. It depends on how clean our rainwater is. As you know, rainwater can be pretty gross.
Yeah, so there are filters for rainwater. Is that it? So is it a rain catcher, like a big basin with a filter on the top?
There's so many different ways you can do it. There's so many systems out there now. But basically you capture the water, you can put it in tanks, you can have a system that keeps it aerated so that it's like, you know what I mean? Like really like clean.
Okay.
Because aeration keeps things clean. Keeps things from going anaerobic and pathogens forming.
Oh, okay, great. So keeping the water bubbling.
Yeah. And a lot of people do that with springs, is they have a spring come down to keep it in a bubbler.
Okay.
But the end all be all with all these systems is that we try to create a system that decentralizes all of our resources, so that you're getting electricity from the wind or from the sun. You're capturing your rainwater or your runoff, and you're turning it into food or processing and drinking it. You are having no waste.
Right. So like an aquaponics system would that be considered permaculture?
Yeah, a lot of people consider that. A lot of people consider that that like, and even hydroponics, a lot of people consider that to be permaculture.
But it doesn't have to be that complicated. I mean, so would permaculture include things like tomatoes? Because those are annuals.
Yeah, the thing is, that's the thing, is it's not like there's no set definition. It's just working with nature and recognizing the systems of nature.
Okay, so it's not just perennials. It's not just perennials. Okay.
No.
Okay.
And we want to aim towards perennials because we're in a situation right now with carbon. And so we want to, trap as much as possible organic matter, which is carbon, right, in the soil. And so constantly tilling actually releases tons and tons, looks like the most amount of carbon into the atmosphere.
So even in our backyards, if we're digging up the backyard, that's releasing carbon. So we want to keep that, the earth
as much as we can,
as much as possible.
Like if let's say we have a site that's just completely eroded and it's all gullied out, well, you might put in earthworks and might go in there and have an event and change things and shift things around, and that'll release carbon. But then you cover it and you seed it, and then this huge event of growth happens. And plants are mostly made out of air.
Do you condone a lot of mulch with that?
Oh yeah, mulching is absolutely permaculture.
Okay.
And
do you have to be careful about where you get your mulch from? Can there be wood chips that are just sprayed with toxins?
There could be. I mean, anything is possible, and a lot of things are done that are just, as you know, when you find out, you're like,
there's no end to this.
Yeah.
The fertilizer is contaminated. The hay is contaminated, right? I mean, there's so many.
Straw gardening, right?
Yeah.
So we're at a point now where the only way we can know things are safe, and I'm speaking from the perspective of a husband whose wife has had cancer 3 times, is that we need to do things ourselves, and we need to know the person who's doing it so that we can know that it's actually clean and safe. And we need to know how they're doing it. We need to be testing soil. We need to be testing water. We need to be testing our blood and our urine.
Ourselves checking in on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the thing with the reason that permaculture is so powerful is it pulls us away from the system that is liquidating natural capital into physical capital. And instead, it creates a system that grows natural capital, which all life is based upon, all biodiversity, all systems, all economies are based around natural capital. So,
can you give me a specific example?
A specific example. Many people consider the fact that by the end of the Roman Empire, they had no soils to grow in the immediate area would be the reason they actually had their downfall. They were getting most of their food from Egypt. And the reason Egypt wasn't destroyed by all of the tillage and what they did was because it brought the flooding every year, brought silt down and covered those flood-like plants.
Okay.
So it's a unique thing and that's the reason why other areas in the world where we did agriculture, we just created deserts. And the reason the Nile is not fertile today is because they created a dam to prevent the silt from coming down. The British did it. So we basically have a situation where and George Washington lamented the loss of soil when he left his presidency. Ben Franklin and him were very, very concerned about this. So this process of decay of empire, the reason we went west was because there wasn't any soil we could grow in anymore on the East Coast. And so this process—
Not just for gold.
Yeah, well, because there was no way to make a living out east. You know what I mean?
Okay,
so,
got it.
I mean,
and I heard that hydroponics was developed from the Romans as well. They had little containers with water because partially maybe what you're talking about, because there was a lack of soil. So I'm guessing that we've been evolving.
Tilling. They would till sometimes 6 to 12 times a year.
Oh, they did. The Romans did.
They just push the soil off the terraces then down into the Mediterranean.
Oh, wow.
Just like we're doing, in
we're
in the
polluting
Midwest.
it now, right?
Yeah, we're not only we're shoving it off, we're polluting it. And what functionally we're doing is we are using these toxic salts, which are fertilizers, because hey, it's a salt, so it melts with water. So that makes mechanical sense. We think of things too mechanically, and so we forget that biology is the reason soil life has the structure it has the fertility, the life would be the life. So when we use fungicides on it and we kill the fungus, well, a third to 50% of all the carbon structure of the soil comes from fungi.
Oh, wow.
So for us to be spraying all this stuff is crazy. So
We have to allow that to grow in order for the soil to be
Right.
rich and dense. So in our homes, I just want to bring it back to
Totally.
our homes for a little bit. So in our backyard gardens, we're talking about not tilling as much as possible, which most in backyards do.
Right. So like a sheet mulch garden.
Sheet
so like
mulch,
a root stout, like
maybe lots of berries and orchard trees if you can.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Nut trees, fruit trees, even timber trees. All the resources that you will need, we should be growing in an immediate area as much as possible. And then, you know, your neighbor that has an abundance of sheep and wool, you can trade your abundance of apples for, and then you get this local economy manifesting, and then you have this security where it's like, well, I don't really need to worry about that because I have so much natural capital that I don't need to buy food. I don't need to buy fiber. My electricity was already paid for up front when I bought my solar panels.
Yeah.
My gray water is processed into water for my plants around my home, because the amount of water that comes into a home and then out of a home is incredible. Most people don't understand, you know, it's like a 55-gallon, like washing machine, right?
Yeah.
55 gallons of water?
And every time we go to the bathroom, we're flushing gallons down. Yeah. And every time we take a shower, it's a lot of water. We could be capturing so much more water than cleaning water so much more than we do right now. And I know everybody has jobs and it seems like it's a very busy thing to take on something else. But what you're talking about is really a shift of consciousness. It's a choice to start to live more in harmony with nature, where we're not destroying the planet and destroying our backyard garden or destroying, the soil, which runs off into the ocean, right? That we then play in when we go to the ocean. So it's a lifestyle choice.
And it's pragmatic too, because it's like, okay, well, if we all go to solar panels in our town, what's that going to do to our town? Well, it's going to enrich everyone.
There's plenty of towns now that run completely on solar, right? In cities,
right.
There's plenty of places that do it.
Individually, each own solar panels on our house. When we don't pay for those bills for a few years, we're going to be doing a little bit better, like financially. And then if our foods all are not even organic, way better than organic, because the nutritional or density of these plants, you can test with a Brix meter. So you can take the tomato and be like, wow, this is a 7.5 or a 12.6. And then they're over there being like, oh man, ours is only an 8. And they're like working on actual density of the food. You know what I mean?
Soil, the soil science and the nutrients that are in the soil, they start actually paying attention to that. Great. So just for the people who are thinking about having a more permaculture type home, what are the top 5 recommendations that you would give to start moving in that direction?
Number one, especially in our area right here, everyone talks about how water is such a big deal. Have your gray water go straight into your gardens.
Okay.
And if you need to have it go through a wood chip bed that's inoculated with a bag of inoculated grains so that it filters it, you just get King Stropharia mushrooms, and they'll literally grow mushrooms and then filter with their mycelium. It's amazing. They actually can catch molecules with their fine net of mycelium. And they will filter out that gray water, and then you'll have clean water come out the other end going to your plants.
So when you're dumping pasta water out, stuff like that, pour it into a bucket to go into your garden instead of just pouring it down the drain, that kind of thing.
Or have your drain route out to your garden and then never put anything bad down the drain.
Oh yeah, that would be nice if we stopped using toxic, detergents and things like that. Yeah. Okay.
And then our washing machines should not have toxic gick in them too, and should go right out into the garden.
Yes.
Our showers.
And we'll post some suggestions for things like non-toxic dish detergents and
there's plenty. There's so many now.
There are a lot. Yes. Okay. So
number one, our water.
Gray water. Yep.
Number 2, a garden.
Garden. Okay.
And in that garden, I want you to save your seeds, because every year you save your seeds, your plants get better.
Awesome.
And it's not like a little bit. It's like you suddenly have like the best plants in town, and you're like, this is like the pumpkin, or like this is the corn.
And you save money on buying seeds. And your seeds, they become like your babies. Right?
And then you have too many very quickly. You have too many, and you share it with them, and then it becomes your town's favorite corn.
Yay.
And this is how that happened. In regions are like, we're known for this tomato. It's like, It's because that neighbor shared it with their neighbor.
Isn't that great? And saved it over the years. Okay, so water, garden, what else?
I would say that you compost all your kitchen waste. So you have a compost heap.
Okay, compost heap. So you don't have to get one of those special composty things that move around that are $100.
You could get that. I've never seen compost come out of those that I like.
Okay.
So
do you like worms better? Like
vermicompost is great too.
Okay.
I prefer thermophilic compost. So that's a hot compost. And that is when you combine a third green, a third brown, and a third manure, nitrogen source. Okay. And so the browns are plants that have gone to seed.
Okay.
So all their nitrogen, all of their...
So it's like bush stuff. Is it tree clippings or no? Just gone to seed?
It's just stuff that's gone to seed. So it can be leaves. It could be...
Okay, right.
It's stuff where all the chlorophyll, all the the nutrients have flowed out of the plant and it's just standing carbon. Really.
Okay.
So like straw.
Okay. Straw.
And weeds at the end of the season when they're just straw color.
Okay, great.
And then the greens are plants that have not gone to seed, and they can even be dry, but it's plants that still embody all those nutrients.
Okay.
And so one is more fungal food, one is more bacterial food, and then the ignition really for all those reactions for that soil life is the nitrogen and the manure. And you don't want old manure; you want fresh manure. You want all the happy gut bacteria.
So you have to add manure. You can't just add your like coffee grounds and your leftover veggie clippings. You have to add manure.
You want manure.
Okay.
Because then it'll get hot, and then once it goes up to 131 to 140, which will happen, you put it in layers.
Yep.
And then you water until it's wet and it leaks a little bit, and you tarp it and you leave it for like 2 to 3 days, and then it gets up to 131 to 140 degrees, very, very, very hot.
Okay.
So much so you can't like put your hand in it.
Really?
Yeah, it's cool.
Don't fires start if you don't churn it?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so that's why some people are like, oh, I'm going to do that, the...
hot composting.
Well, they want to do that, the giant wood chip garden.
Yeah.
And then they have these giant piles of wood chips.
Yeah.
And then they start fires. It's the same exact thing.
Okay.
So turning a compost is incredibly important because it does get so hot.
Okay.
So I would have a compost. Yep. I would have a garden.
Yep.
I would deal with your gray water, and then as much as possible, I would find ways to have backups for your energy.
Okay. Solar energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what's the fifth one?
The fifth one would likely be. Ooh, this is a good one. I love the 5 things. There's always the fifth one that you're like.
How about
stretch.
recycling?
Well, yeah. That's the other thing is the other part of the like waste. There's no waste.
Yeah.
There should be no waste.
There should be no waste in permaculture life. Okay.
So, for instance, all your paper and all your cardboard. Well, that's just woody waste.
Oh, that can go in the compost.
Well, that can go in the compost, but it can also be eaten by fungi. So, if we guarantee in our town that all the cardboard is clean, the glues they use in there are clean, well, we could compost with it. Or we could grow fungi on it and eat the fungi. And then what was left, we could have worms eat it, and then it would become... Okay. And then, so your end product will be fungal dominant compost, which is perfect for orchards and perennial systems. Okay. And you get mushrooms.
Wow.
So, and then we really need to get past this recycling thing. I love recycling, but we need to get a little bit higher level.
Higher level, okay.
We need to get to reuse. I mean, you've been to Europe, right?
Yes.
Remember those bottles, all the nicks and then the things in them, and it's like, how many times has this bottle been used?
Yes.
No one knows.
You would get yogurt at a restaurant. It's in a cup that you reuse. It's a clay. It's a piece of art. It's pottery. That's how you buy your yogurt in many places.
And no one knows how many times that bottle has cycled that system.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we need like bottle washers and stuff like that too. So we need to create infrastructure to make more room for these changes to happen.
Yeah.
So like we were discussing that idea, we need to take a day off from this whole scheme of liquidating nature. We need to take, and we could start this year, all of us, to take one day to get off all the grids. So get off electricity grid, get off their water grid.
No electricity day.
Mm-hmm. And then only buy organic local food.
A meatless Monday, but we want to have like a organic Sunday or something, like a no electricity.
Yeah, break out the solar oven.
Back to the pioneer days on Sunday kind of thing.
Yeah.
Something like that, or Saturday.
Yeah, and
whatever
it
you
probably
choose.
will be, actually, to be realistic, it will probably be for some of us initially back to the pioneer days. But the crazy thing is we're actually saving, because that's a day of not spending.
It is. My husband would be up for that, for sure.
And so 1/7 of our year of spending wouldn't happen.
That's, yeah.
And then that could go into buying solar panel. And then the next year, and that day,
Yeah.
you would have energy. So you wouldn't be like pioneering it. You know what I mean? You would instead have invested that time to prepare yourself to do that. And then maybe you do 2 days.
Yeah.
And then maybe you do 3. And it's like, oh man, see
this
that
is
guy, they're
nothing
off
new.
4 days off the grid.
Nothing new for some cultures, right? Like the Orthodox culture, they don't use any electricity on, I think, Friday nights or something like that. I'm sorry, I don't know, but I know there are cultures who don't use electricity
Hasidic Jews,
for a certain period of time, even if it may be a whole day or at least a part of a day. So yeah, we need to learn from our ancestors, implement some of these age-old, methods in modern culture in order to slow down, connect with nature, have our home be a place where we're working in harmony with nature, and just do a little bit at a time.
Right. It's all about taking things in steps so we can build and not crash.
Well, thank you so much for giving us a peek at what a permaculture lifestyle looks like from the home. It's so exciting. I get it now. I really do. I get it. And we can do a little bit of this every day on momsacrossamerica.org. We do have a solutions page. We have one for home and gardening. We will definitely be putting many of your tips and techniques on that website, as well as reference to some of the things that you mentioned. So please do look there and share. We have at the bottom of the page comments. You can add in if you have a favorite rainwater capture system, or a certain type of solar product. Please do let us know. Let's crowdsource and find the best products and share with each other. Okay, thank you, Matt. We'll be back again for another series. We're going to be talking about permaculture in schools, and then we're also going to be talking about how permaculture can affect climate change and the world. So come back later. Okay, take care.